you're looking to dive into topics on how to live a happier, healthier, more fit and long lifespan, then you've come to the right podcast. Livin the Dream with me, Coach Damian Evans. Together, we will explore the topics on all things health, fitness, and wellness. Together, we will be lifelong learners on this journey to living the ultimate dream. What up, Dream Team? Coach D here, coming at you from beautiful sunny San Diego, and welcome back to the Livin the Dream podcast. And in today's episode, we continue on with our review of the amazing book, Good Energy, by author Dr. Calley Means and her brother, Calley Means. All right, so we're continuing on our deep dive into this book, Good Energy, and today we're going to be discussing how bad energy is the root of many diseases and how addressing the underlying causes can transform our health. Let's start off with Lucy's story. At the age of 36, Lucy was dealing with a cluster of health issues. She had adult acne, bloating after meals, low mood and anxiety, insomnia, and infertility. She had seen multiple specialists, but nothing was working. She came to Dr. Calley's practice looking for answers, eager to feel better and to start a family. Lucy's issues, though common, were frustrating and impacting her well-being and her dreams. She didn't feel as good as she thought she could, even though her conditions were considered, quote, typical. Many women face similar challenges, and often these issues are treated as separate, isolated problems. During her initial visit, Dr. Calley and Lucy peeled back the layers to uncover the root causes of her symptoms. Here's what they found. Sleep. Lucy's sleep was frequently interrupted by her husband going to bed later and her cat jumping on the bed. Food. Her diet included many refined and ultra-processed foods. Movement. While she did yoga and weekend hikes, she was pretty much otherwise sedentary and did no resistance training. Stress. Lucy felt lonely in a new city and experienced low-grade stress from her job and her family situations. Toxins. Her water was unfiltered, and she used personal and home care products containing many common toxins. And she also drank wine several nights a week. And light. She was exposed to blue light all day long from her computer screen and then late into the night from her TV screen. Together, they created a comprehensive plan to address each of these individual issues by treating food as medicine, optimizing her sleep, reducing her stress, protecting her microbiome, and reducing environmental toxins, and also maximizing sunlight exposure during the day. And within 6 months, Lucy saw dramatic improvements. Her menstrual cycle normalized, her mood lifted, her digestive function improved, and she was able to taper off all of her medications. She even postponed her first IVF appointment, feeling confident that her reproductive hormones were balancing again. Lucy's story illustrates a crucial point. Many chronic symptoms and chronic diseases are connected by shared root cause of cellular malfunction, often resulting in bad energy. Here are 3 simple truths to understand. Number 1, cellular dysfunction. Most chronic symptoms and diseases are connected by cellular dysfunction, which often results from metabolic issues. Symptoms don't just arise out of thin air. They are the result of cellular problems. Number 2, spectrum of conditions. Chronic conditions linked to bad energy range from non-life-threatening issues like fatigue and infertility to life-threatening conditions like stroke and heart disease. Spectrum of conditions. And number 3, warning signs. Mild symptoms today can be clues that more serious diseases may follow. Addressing these mild symptoms early can prevent future health issues. I can't remember who explained it this way, but I really connected to this explanation. They said it's like if you had a fire alarm going on in your house. You wouldn't just go over to that fire alarm and remove the batteries. You would check to see if there was smoke first. That's what we're doing with our body and all of these little tiny symptoms that start off as mild. It's a smoke alarm. It's something going off in your body telling you that something is not right. And we just keep taking out the batteries and putting it on the back burner and thinking that everything is going to be okay. Mild symptoms today can be clues for more serious diseases that may follow. Understanding this interconnectively is empowering. It allows us to see how seemingly minor symptoms are warning signs of larger problems. By addressing the root causes and making consistent lifestyle changes, we can drastically improve our health and well-being. Now we're moving into the story of how early life and even prenatal factors can set the stage for health challenges later on. Dr. Casey's story starts before she was even born. We kind of touched on this on the very first recap episode. When her mom was preparing for pregnancy in the 1980s, she followed the nutritional advice of the time. Lots of grains, low-fat snacks, and not much focus on healthy proteins or vegetables. Her mom's diet and lifestyle were far from ideal. Minimal exercise, late nights, and smoking. These factors invisibly influenced her metabolic health and, in turn, Dr. Casey's health in utero. Dr. Casey was born an 11-pound, 9-ounce baby. Oh, babies this large, a condition called macrosomnia, often face increased risks of future metabolic problems like type 2 diabetes and obesity. Here's why. Number one, insulin resistance. High levels of glucose exposure in utero can cause insulin resistance in the child, not just in the mom, in the child, setting the stage for future metabolic issues. Number two, fat cell number and fat cell size. Exposure to high levels of maternity fatty acids can increase both the number of size of fat cells in the baby, contributing to obesity later in life, and the number of fat cells. And number three, inflammation. High levels of inflammation in utero can also set the stage for metabolic problems as the child ages. And due to her size, Dr. Casey was born via cesarean section, and this meant that she missed out on all the beneficial organisms found in the vaginal canal, which play a huge role in establishing a healthy microbiome. They didn't know about this back in that time. Fast forward to age 14, Dr. Casey decided to take control of her health, determined to reach a healthy weight. She dove into nutrition books and cookbooks, learning how to cook meals, and she joined a gym. She spent the summer working out, cooking, and improving her own health. She took the reins and she became the CEO of her own health. At the age of 14, through dedication and consistent effort, she lost the extra weight and she noticed improvements in her overall health symptoms. And though she didn't know it at the time, she was just doing the best that she could. She likely reversed the insulin resistance and the chronic inflammation that she had been experiencing her whole since she was an infant. Her journey didn't stop there. In her mid-teens, she became a dedicated athlete and a chef, which helped keep many of her symptoms at bay. This personal experience laid the foundation for her later work in understanding how early life factors and lifestyle choices impact our long-term health. This story, it underscores the importance of considering how early life and even prenatal environment can influence our health trajectories. It's a powerful reminder that the choices that we make can have long-lasting impacts, but also that we have the power to make positive changes at any stage of life. Now we're going to dive into the challenges that she faced in her 20s and 30s, highlighting how bad energy played a crucial role in her health struggles. Dr. Casey's journey into bad energy continued as she became a medical doctor and first-year surgical resident. She was 26 years old. Her new lifestyle was a matrix of chronic stress and adrenaline, with round-the-clock pager beeps, with fluorescent hospital lights at all hours, with erratic sleep during her night shifts, and disgusting processed cafeteria food, constant caffeine, little exercise, and multi-day stretches without sunlight. Oh my gosh, her body became an epicenter of bad energy, manifesting in multiple symptoms. First, IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. The first sign of trouble was IBS with painful lower abdominal gas and watery diarrhea 8 to 10 times a day for almost 2 years. Brutal. This showed that her intestinal cells were dysfunctional and couldn't do their job. Now we know research indicates that reduced mitochondrial activity and decreased energy production in gut lining cells contribute to IBS symptoms. Insulin resistance, a key factor in bad energy, can negatively affect the gut's nervous system. It can alter gut motility and it can impair gut barrier function. Essentially, this leads to increased inflammation and sensitivity in the gut, fueling metabolic issues throughout the entire body. Next was acne. Acne cysts on her face and her neck. Elevated glucose and elevated insulin levels drove a hormonal change, and this stimulated excess production of skin oil that clogged her hair follicles, creating and breeding grounds for bacteria to just thrive. People with acne often have higher insulin levels, and multiple studies show that a low glycemic or low carbohydrate diet can significantly reduce acne. Acne and other skin conditions are linked to oxidative stress, which we've talked about in the last episode that we recapped, and mitochondrial damage. All of these are hallmarks of bad energy. And then depression. Uncharacteristic depression also emerged during her residency. The brain, being one of the most energy-hungry organs, is highly sensitive to oxidative stress and inflammation. Bad energy processes like mitochondrial dysfunction impact brain function and mood regulation. The gut-brain axis, the axis between the gut and the brain, the communication between the digestive and the central nervous system, digestive system and the nervous system, they're linked up through a gut-brain axis. This plays a crucial role in depression. What? 90% of serotonin in the body, the hormone that regulates mood, is in the gut. So if the gut's all dysregulated, this is going to go up into the brain, and the gut microbiome produces these neurotransmitters that regulate mood. And disruptions in gut function can significantly impact your mental health. That's wild. IBS and depression are strongly linked, with IBS often being called the depression of the gut. Wild, wild. Understanding the link between bad energy and depression. The link between bad energy and depression starts with number 1, energy production. Mitochondrial dysfunction leads to decreased energy production in the brain, affecting neurotransmitter signaling. So if your mitochondria are dysfunctional, it leads to decreased energy. They can't create the energy, right? And then that means in the brain, which is one of the most energy expensive organs in the body, it takes up, even though it's only 2% of your body weight, it uses up to 20 to 25% of your energy throughout the day. Woo, that's gnarly. And this is going to affect any kind of neurotransmitter signaling. Also, the link between bad energy and depression, inflammation, increased oxidative stress from mitochondrial dysfunction, it triggers that inflammatory response. And that's going to be linked to depression as well. Neural function, when the mitochondria are vital for neural function, including cell death regulation, when the cells need to die off, when they're old and weak and they need to die off, mitochondria are vital for neural function. And when they don't die off, this is a problem. It's important for calcium regulation and oxidative stress defense. Essentially, it's dysfunction in all of these processes contribute to depression. And then the last thing is the stress response. Proper mitochondrial function is crucial for the HPA axis. I know this is getting a little bit scientific, but it's really important. You have the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. You have your hypothalamus, which is right there in the front of your brain. You have the pituitary gland that releases all these hormones that are super important. And you have the adrenal glands. All of those things are linked up to create what's called the HPA axis. And this, all you really need to know about that is that it regulates stress and the stress response in the body, and that mitochondrial dysfunction alters this HPA axis and contributes to depression. So those are 4 ways that bad energy is linked to depression. And Dr. Casey's experience highlights how interconnected our bodily systems are and just how bad energy can manifest in so many different various ways. Her challenges underscore the importance of addressing root causes and making lifestyle changes to support cellular health and overall well-being. Next, we're going to dive into this segment in the book that sheds light on how unstable blood sugar and how poor metabolic health impact everything from your mental health to even chronic pain and things like autoimmune conditions. Unstable blood sugar can derail the brain's cells, just as it can disrupt any other cells in the body. It can cause brain cells to produce more stress hormones, creating an endless feedback loop of stress to dysfunction, to more stress to more dysfunction. Fascinatingly, the primary metabolic biomarkers we discussed earlier can tell us a lot about depression risk. For example, every additional 18 milligrams per deciliter of fasting glucose, every time your blood glucose goes up 18 points, it's associated with a 37% increased risk of developing depression. Only 18 milligrams per deciliter. So if you take your blood sugar and it's 85, and then you are getting all of this stress, you're getting all this metabolic damage, and then you take it 2 months from now and it's up 18 points, that means that you have a 37% increased rate of developing depression. That's crazy. Additionally, each 1 unit increase in triglyceride to HDL ratio increases the likelihood of developing depression by 89%. Whoa. Dr. Casey shared a personal experience from her residency where the chronic stress and poor lifestyle led to severe depression. Chronic stress, poor lifestyle, severe depression. Her brain cells, likely deprived of proper energy, couldn't function optimally or properly. This connection between metabolic syndrome and depression, including suicidal ideation, highlights the urgent need to address metabolic health as rates of depression and suicide continue to rise, especially among our young people. And then chronic pain, even chronic pain like neck pain. Dr. Casey developed as a young surgeon, she got some neck pain, and they found that this can be linked to metabolic dysfunction. Poor mitochondrial function and insulin resistance can lead to nerve damage and sensation, decreased production of neurotransmitters, and muscle wasting, all contributing to this chronic pain that people experience. It's estimated that 20% of US adults, 1 out of every 5, suffer from chronic pain, often related to the dysfunction in their cellular energy pathways. And then things like sinus infections and migraines. In the ear, nose, and throat department where Dr. Casey used to work, many head and neck issues like sinusitis and migraines were prevalent. Chronic sinusitis, characterized by facial pain, nasal congestion, headaches, this is often linked to high blood sugar levels. For example, the likelihood of having sinusitis is 2.7 times higher if you have type 2 diabetes. 2.7 times higher. This connection is due to the inflammatory pathways that are common across different conditions like heart disease, obesity, and type 2 diabetes. Similarly, migraines, which affect about 12% of people, over 1 out of every 10 of people in the United States, are closely linked to poor metabolic health. Migraine sufferers tend to have impaired insulin sensitivity and higher insulin levels. Research suggests that restoring levels of key micronutrients like vitamin B and vitamin D and magnesium and CoQ10, also alpha lipoic acid, ALA, and L-carnitine can help treat migraines, as these nutrients are crucial for mitochondrial function and energy production. So again, some things that you could supplement with if you do experience migraines, something to maybe try out with or talk to your doctor about, are vitamins B and vitamins D, magnesium, which a lot of us are deficient in, CoQ10, alpha lipoic acid, ALA, and L-carnitine give those a shot, or maybe talk to somebody about supplementing with those if you experience migraines or things like sinusitis. And then hearing loss. This one's scary to me. Hearing loss is another condition with metabolic links that are often overlooked. Insulin resistance is associated with age-related hearing loss because it affects the energy production in the delicate hearing cells and blocks the small blood vessels supplying the inner ear. One study shows that people with elevated fasting glucose levels had a significantly higher prevalence of high-frequency hearing impairment compared to those with normal glucose levels. Early assessment of metabolic function and counseling on insulin resistance can be crucial in preventing hearing loss. Autoimmune conditions, the autoimmune diseases that you see where the body's immune system attacks its own tissues, also have strong metabolic links. Conditions like Sjogren's syndrome and Hashimoto's thyroiditis are more common in individuals with insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome. A famous doctor, Dr. Terry Walls, speculates that the cell danger response, which is a reaction coordinated by the mitochondria to perceive threats, she said that this can lead to chronic diseases, including autoimmune disorders. Chronic low-grade inflammation and oxidative stress disrupt insulin signaling, leading to insulin resistance and contributing to autoimmune conditions. And Dr. Terry Walls, she was actually so degenerated that she went into a wheelchair. She thought she was never going to walk again, and she was able to change her diet, change her lifestyle, and she started walking again. Dr. Terry Walls is a great person to follow if you suffer from autoimmune issues. Research shows that people with autoimmune disease like rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, psoriasis, or inflammatory bowel disease, and even things like multiple sclerosis are more likely to develop metabolic disorders, things like obesity and type 2 diabetes. The skyrocketing rate of autoimmune disease in the United States, affecting approximately 50 million people, highlights the impact of modern dietary and modern lifestyle exposures on our health. Dr. Casey's experience and the scientific evidence that she presents underscores the importance of understanding the root cause of these conditions. We have to address the metabolic dysfunction and improve our lifestyle choices, and we can make a significant stride in preventing and managing these health issues. The impact of bad energy on children is a little scary as well. The next section in the book sheds light on how our modern lifestyle and environment are setting up our kids for metabolic dysfunction and various health issues. The prevalence of childhood obesity has skyrocketed over the past 50 years. According to the CDC, the rate of childhood obesity has more than tripled since the 1970s. Tripled since the 1970s. Back then, about 5% of children and adolescents age 6 to 19 were considered obese. Just 5%. By the late 2000s, this rate had increased by approximately 18%, and it continues to rise to this day. Another face of bad energy in children is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, NAFLD, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Now the most common liver disease in kids. NAFLD has been reported in up to 20% of children and up to 80% of obese children. That's scary. Certain groups like Hispanic young men show even higher rates, with 42% having NAFLD, almost half. This condition represents a full-blown metabolic dysfunction where liver cells fill with fat, worsening insulin resistance. Key contributors including processed foods, refined sugars, refined grains, sweet beverages, sodas, high fructose corn syrup, fast food, and low fiber intake, things like sedentary behavior and oxidative stress. These are all contributors to what's going on with our kids. Liver transplants have increased by nearly 50% in the past 15 years, with NAFLD now being the leading cause of liver failure in women and a top cause in men. This trend is alarming, and it shows that we are failing our children. Children's brain are also affected by bad energy. We are seeing epidemic levels of childhood mental illness. About 20%, 1 out of 5 of children have an identified mental health condition in any given year. And by the age of 18, 40% meet the criteria for mental health disorders. 40%. The number of children diagnosed with anxiety and depression has increased significantly, with 29% increase in anxiety, 29% in anxiety, and 27% increase in depression between 2016 and 2020. So increasing big between that 4-year gap period. Suicide has also become the second leading cause of death for young adults aged 10 to 34. And in 2020, 25% of young adults contemplated suicide, 1 out of every 4 in 2020. A statistic that is just hard to even fathom. There's little discussion among local leaders about how metabolic factors like inflammatory food, lack of sleep, chronic stress, too much time on screens contribute to these trends. Developmental conditions like autism and ADHD are also rising rapidly. Mothers with obesity and diabetes have a quadruple risk of having a child with autism and a double risk of having a child with ADHD. Our brains are highly sensitive to bad energy, and a developing brain is particularly vulnerable. Supporting maternal and early childhood metabolic health should be a key public health priority. The epidemic levels of obesity, of liver dysfunction, of brain dysfunction in our children, it highlights a cellular energy crisis. Children's small developing bodies are being set up to fail due to the prevalence of processed foods and other factors that damage mitochondrial and cellular energy production. Here are some health conditions increasing in children that are linked to poor cellular energy production, poor mitochondrial dysfunction, and or oxidative stress. There's ADHD, there's autism spectrum disorder, type 2 diabetes, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, cardiomyopathy, depression, anxiety, and high blood pressure, high cholesterol, irritable bowel disease, asthma, atopic dermatitis, allergies, acne, psoriasis, eczema, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and borderline personality disorder. And many parents frequently take their kids to the doctor for recurrent infections in their throat, their ear, and upper respiratory tract infections. And few understand that how their kids' bodies produce energy significantly impacts their propensity for all of these illnesses that we just talked about. Kids with metabolic dysfunction are at a higher risk for infections and more likely to experience recurrent health issues. The antibiotics that are thrown at us, often prescribed, can disrupt the microbiome, and it affects gut and metabolic function even more negatively, leading to chronic inflammation and further health problems. Are antibiotics useless? No, definitely they're necessary in some situations, but the way that we've been using them has been a problem. Our culture has normalized giving children ultra-processed foods, has normalized giving our children things using toxic personal care products and overusing medications like acetaminophen and exposing them to poor sleep and chronic stress. I remember when I played basketball in high school, I would take 6 ibuprofen a day, 3 before practice, 3 after practice. I was 6'3", 150 pounds. And I was taking 6 ibuprofen every single day, 7 days a week, and I'm pretty sure I was doing it for years. That's a problem. The practices that we create, they create an inflammatory and metabolic disastrous environment for our kids. We have to be more aware of what's going on. Parents can make a significant impact by controlling the controllables, the things that their children see and encounter in their environment, by focusing on healthy diet, by focusing on lifestyle choices and lifestyle behaviors. We can help our kids avoid many of these metabolic pitfalls that lead to chronic diseases and improve their overall quality of life. Just all those primal things that we were meant to do. Get outside, play with other children, wrestle, and figure out like the hierarchy of what being a human being looks like. We don't see much of that anymore, it seems like. The next segment in the book really focuses on how bad energy manifests in life-threatening conditions, especially as we age. So things like 50 and beyond, the rise of life-threatening chronic conditions as we get older. As we get older, many of us witness our parents develop these chronic illnesses like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart disease, stroke, dementia, arthritis, cancer, and even things like respiratory conditions. These are all rooted in bad energy. Stroke, the relationship between high blood glucose and stroke risk is well established. People with type 2 diabetes have a double risk of stroke compared to those without diabetes. Even pre-diabetic glucose levels, which they told Dr. Calley Means' mom, which was quote unquote normal, pre-diabetic glucose levels would be between 110 and 125. If you take your blood glucose in the morning, fasted, between 110 and 125, you're pre-diabetic. This increases stroke risk by 60%. Insulin resistance leads to several vascular problems, including excess clotting risk, reduced nitric oxide production, which help with blood flow and which helps with vein dilation and restriction. So like how big your blood vessels get, and increased atherosclerosis. Also dementia. Dementia, including Alzheimer's disease, is also linked to bad energy. The brain uses more energy and glucose than any other organ, making it particularly vulnerable to the effects of unstable blood sugar. Impaired glucose uptake due to insulin resistance can starve brain cells of the energy that they need, potentially leading to things like type 3 diabetes, also called Alzheimer's disease. In the United States, around 6.2 million adults age 65 or older, 6.2 million adults ages 65 or older live with Alzheimer's. Oof, I can't think of anything more scary than a brain degenerative disease. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. This is a number that is expected to more than double by 2050. Double. The healthcare costs associated with Alzheimer's disease are staggering. It's an estimated $355 billion in 2021. $355 billion, with an additional $250 billion in unpaid caregiving. Research shows that 40% of Alzheimer's cases are related to modifiable risk factors, suggesting that prevention is possible. Heart disease. Heart disease remains the leading cause of death in the Western world, and high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and coronary artery diseases are all tied to bad energy. The Framingham Heart Study, a huge study, highlighted that metabolic dysfunction, especially diabetes, is a significant risk for heart disease. High blood sugar, high blood glucose leads to oxidative stress, which damages blood vessels and leads to atherosclerosis. This can cause coronary artery disease, leading to nearly 700,000 deaths per year in the United States. Whew, that right there, that is what we call an epidemic. High blood pressure affecting 50% of the population is another major risk factor. It is driven by inflammation, obesity, insulin resistance, and oxidative stress. These factors strain the blood vessel linings, decreasing the nitric oxide production, and leads to arterial stiffness and increased heart disease risk. Not just the heart disease, but also respiratory disease. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD, is the leading type of chronic respiratory disease. 16% of people newly diagnosed with COPD, 16% have type 2 diabetes, an additional 19% develop diabetes within 10 years of a COPD diagnosis. Smoking is a key factor here, directly damaging the mitochondria, leading to decreased energy production and increased risk of diabetes and COPD. Smoking is just, there's nothing good that comes from it. Now, improving blood glucose control can lead to better outcomes for patients that have chronic respiratory conditions. A 2019 study showed that adults with type 2 diabetes who took metformin were less likely to die from chronic lower respiratory diseases. A healthy diet rich in fruits and vegetables can also decrease COPD severity and risk. So this shows that A little bit with some medication and a little bit with some diet changes, things can improve. Things like arthritis. How many of us know someone with arthritis, or how many of us ourselves have arthritis? Particularly osteoarthritis or osteoporosis. These things are conditions linked to bad energy. Chronic inflammation and oxidative stress can damage joint tissues and can contribute to joint degeneration. Excess weight increases the risk of developing osteoarthritis. With each pound of weight gain, adding 4 pounds of load on the knee joint. So if you have bad knees, if your knees hurt, it says that each pound of weight that you gain, it adds an extra 4 pounds of load to the knee joint. And then when you start jogging or running, it just amplifies that by factors. Exercise is crucial for minimizing joint pain and supporting mitochondrial function. You need to stress the tissues enough to create a stimulus that the body senses this stimulus and says that this either joint or tissue needs to be stronger. After you stress the tissue, you need to give it the amount of rest that it needs, and you need to give it the building blocks that it needs. I just don't think enough people understand this concept. You have to stress something to adapt bigger, better, and stronger, but you also have to give it the recovery and the fuel to be able to give it the building blocks to rebuild. So exercise, yes, is a crucial thing to do for minimizing joint pain, not avoiding exercise because you have joint pain. But it needs to be done the right way. You can't just pound yourself into the ground. The conclusion to all of these things, the rise of life-threatening chronic conditions in our older years is deeply rooted in bad energy. These conditions, from stroke and dementia and heart disease and respiratory disease and arthritis, these are all linked to metabolic dysfunction and poor cellular energy production. By understanding this and addressing the root causes and doing the things with the 4 pillars of health, movement, nutrition, stress management, sleep, we can work towards preventing and managing all of these health issues. Next, we're going to explore the profound connections between our metabolic health and the COVID-19 pandemic, along with the broader implications for our healthcare system. This part of the book was fascinating. When COVID-19 hit in the early 2020, Dr. Casey was just launching her company Levels. We've shared a lot of Levels information on this podcast before. This is a health technology company aimed at empowering individuals to understanding their own metabolic health. The pandemic starkly revealed the metabolic blind spot in conventional medicine. COVID-19 disproportionately affected those with underlying conditions and diseases linked to bad energy, primarily driven by diet and lifestyle. I posted about this in March of 2020. We were talking about it. All the people in the fitness industry were talking about it, but everything else was getting politicized. It started to get so crazy, but it was so obvious to those of us that were here, living it, seeing it. Numerous peer-reviewed studies highlighted that 80 to 100% of people who died from COVID-19, listen to that again, 80 to 100% had other chronic health problems, with metabolic issues like type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, those being the most common, and patients with metabolic syndrome faced a 77% increased risk of hospitalization, an 81% increased risk of death from the COVID-19 virus. This wasn't the first time a pathogen disproportionately affected people with diabetes. We've seen bacterial infections and seasonal influenza also have higher morbidity in people with diabetes due to their impaired immune response from high blood sugar. And that high blood sugar, it hampers immune cell movement, it hampers pathogen destruction and the effectiveness of our antibodies. It also triggers an excessive release of pro-inflammatory cytokines, leading to an exaggerated and dysfunctional immune response. The cruel cost of missing the signs. We often accept conditions like obesity, acne, fatigue, depression, infertility, high cholesterol, or prediabetes. We accept these things as normal parts of aging. However, these conditions are early signs of metabolic dysfunction and bad energy. And ignoring these signs leads to more serious conditions down the road. Taking the batteries out of the smoke alarm can be catastrophic in the future. Dr. Casey's patients often experienced early metabolic conditions before developing severe diseases like heart disease and cancer. And in medicine, conditions that occur together, they're called comorbidities. Conditions that occur together are comorbidities. But this term normalizes the coexistence of serious conditions without addressing their common root issues, their root causes. This normalization leads to missed opportunities to address the underlying metabolic dysfunction. Dr. Casey's mom is a perfect example. Despite making numerous efforts to improve her health through various diets and exercise programs, she didn't have the framework to understand her metabolic dysfunction. Her health issues, from having a large baby at birth to then getting high blood pressure in her 40s, high cholesterol in her 50s, prediabetes in her 60s, and ultimately pancreatic cancer in her 70s, were all branches of the same tree of metabolic dysfunction. The siloed medical system treated each issue separately, failing to address the underlying problem. Is there a path forward? Yeah, the path forward. Our society's approach to treating these conditions as separate is fundamentally flawed. We need to focus on consistent pathways inside our bodies, the function and the quantity of mitochondria that we have, the prevalence of chronic inflammation and the levels of our oxidative stress. How is the health of our microbiome? And how are all of these factors interrelated, and how do they all interact? Despite the grim picture that we've painted so far, there is hope. Our cells have an incredible capacity for adaptability and for regeneration. It is insane the way that we can regenerate, and it doesn't take a ton of time. By focusing on protecting and improving our cellular energy production, we can regain our health. We can regain our confidence, our self-esteem. We can regain our happiness. Becoming an empowered patient is possible, but it just requires understanding the shortcomings and the incentives of our current healthcare system. We've lost our way, but we can change course quickly. This information in this book is relevant for people of all ages. Dr. Casey has seen significant health improvements in her patients, in herself, ranging from 8 to 80 years old, by starting with the foundation of cellular health. Wow. We've covered a lot today. We explored how bad energy is the root cause of so many chronic conditions, from childhood obesity to mental health issues to life-threatening diseases like stroke, dementia, heart disease, respiratory diseases, and arthritis. We also dived into the profound impact of metabolic health on the severity of COVID-19 and how our current healthcare system often misses the signs of metabolic dysfunction. But here's the empowering part. Understanding these connections gives us the power to make real changes in our own lives, in our families' lives, by focusing on improving our cellular health through diet, exercise, stress management, and better sleep. We can prevent and even reverse many of these conditions. It's not just about treating symptoms. It's about addressing the root causes of optimizing our health from the inside out. If you want to dive into the 4 pillars of total wellness, we have 4 masterclass episodes that I've done. There are flagship episodes that I send to the people that first start listening to that podcast. Go back and listen to those. Pillar number 1 of total wellness, movement. Pillar number 2 of total wellness, nutrition. 3, stress management, and 4, sleep and recovery. Check them out. And if you can't find them, let me know. I'll send you the direct link. Next week, we're going to dive into the next section of Good Energy, where we'll explore practical strategies and insights to boost our metabolic health. It's going to go from the doom and gloom to what can we do about it, and learn how we can trust ourselves on our own health journey. You're not going to want to miss it. Tune in next week. Remember, you have the power to take control of your health. Small, consistent changes can lead to significant improvements. Let's continue this journey together, supporting each other and sharing our experiences. And that's it, my friends. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Livin the Dream podcast. Please share the knowledge that you gain with your friends and family and hold each other accountable. If you enjoyed this content, it really does help a ton if you could post a screenshot on your social media stories and include one takeaway that you learned from this episode. Make sure that you tag me and share your journey. Tag me at livinthedream_podcast or at Coach Damien_SD and let us know how this episode benefited you. And if you could take a second to rate this podcast on whatever platform you're listening to, that would help a ton as well. It's a nice non-cost way to support this podcast. Let us know what we missed. Let us know what we got wrong. Tell us what you think about what we covered today. We want to know. Message us if you have any suggestions or tips that would help your Livin the Dream team that we could discuss on future episodes. I will be right here with you working on making us stronger, happier, and healthier humans. Until next time, friends, keep living the dream.